Hello everyone, welcome again in the lecture of Financial Accounting of Semester 2nd under the chapter Final Accounts of Charitable Trust. Here we have another example of Charitable Trust where we have a receipt and payment account as well as some additional information, and you may take a screenshot of this example or you may write down it in your notebook. So let us start the example. The following is the balance sheet of Eagle Cricket Club for the year 2018-19. Here we have some receipts as well as some payments, and we have an adjustment. First of all, we will see what kind of adjustments are given and what kind of receipts and payments we have. We have a receipt of rupees, opening balance of cash is of rupees 18,000. Then we have subscription. We received sale of old cricket bat, then hire from ground, donations like membership fee, subscription, and membership fees. After that, we have some payments that we have a credit balance of cash, that is bank overdraft of rupees 16,000. Upkeep of field, tournament expenses, rates, insurance, telephone, postage and courier, printing, stationery, miscellaneous, secretary honorarium, grass, seeds, investment, and purchase of sports material. As well as we have a closing cash balance of rupees 74,000. So with this we have some additional information that in example you have to find out the first of all you have to find out opening capital fund. So here we have some opening assets and liabilities, as well as we have another adjustment like donations and surplus on account of tournament are to be kept in reserve for permanent pavilion. So we have a donation of rupees 6 lakh. It has to be recorded separately on the liability side for reserve for permanent pavilion. As well as we have some tournament receipts. Here you can see subscription for tournament, that is rupees 60,000, and against this subscription of tournament we have an expenses of tournament, that is tournament expenses. You can see here on the payment side, that is tournament expenses of rupees 40,000. So the total receipt of for tournament is of rupees 60,000. Against it we have an expense of rupees 40,000. That means there is a surplus of rupees 20,000. So 20,000 surplus of subscription for a tournament as well as 6 lakh. So total 6 lakh 20,000 will be kept aside for the reserve for permanent pavilion. Then there is another adjustment, subscription due on 31st March 2019 is of rupees 42,000. Here you can see subscription of rupees 2,50,000. We received the subscription of rupees 2,50,000. With this we have an outstanding subscription, or we can say a subscription receivable for the current year is of rupees 42,000. Now after that we have an adjustment of write off 50% of sports material and 30% of printing and stationery. Here you can see opening balance of printing and stationery is of rupees 11,000, and we purchased current year printing and stationery of rupees 26,000. That means opening balance of rupees 11,000 and current year purchase of rupees 26,000. So total will be 37,000. Out of that 37,000 we have to write off 30%, and sports material we have to write off 50%. So here you can see a sports material of rupees 85,000, and we purchase 68,000 of rupees sports material for a current year. That means 85 plus 68,000. So total will be 1,53,000, and out of that 1,53,000 we have to write off 50%. Okay. Another adjustment is life membership fees to be capitalized. Here you can see a life membership fees of rupees 20,000. It has to be capitalized. That means we have to add this life membership fee in a capital fund. You are required to prepare income and expenditure account for the year ended 31st March 2019 and balance sheet and balance sheet as on 31st March 2019, as well as opening balance sheet that is on 1st April 2018. In the example, we did not find the opening capital fund, so we have to find capital fund, and for finding out capital fund we have to prepare opening balance sheet. In opening balance sheet we have to mention some liabilities and assets. Here we have opening cash of rupees 18,000. That means it should be reflected in the opening balance sheet, that is opening cash or cash in hand, that is amount of rupees 18,000. After that, we have another assets over here. Another liability on the credit side, that is balance of cash, but which is a credit balance. That means it is a bank overdraft. So it has to be reflected on the liability side. That is amount rupees 16,000. So here bank overdraft of rupees 16,000. After that, we have an assets that playground 5 lakh, cash 18,000, which I have already mentioned. So playground is of rupees 5 lakh. So here playground 5 lakh. After that, we have another assets of printing and stationery 11,000. Printing and stationery 11,000. Stock of printing and stationery 11,000. And then we have subscription receivable of rupees 28,000. Also here subscription receivable of rupees 28,000, and sports material of rupees 85,000. So here is the sports material is of rupees 85,000. Okay. Now after this, we have to calculate this capital fund account balance, that is opening balance, which is a balancing figure from, that is assets minus total liability will be the capital fund. So here we will calculate the capital fund. So 6,42,000 is our assets minus 16,000 of bank overdraft. That means our capital fund is of rupees 6,26,000. But we have to check that any other expense, any other assets or liability is not missing over here. According to my knowledge, everything is mentioned. So 6,26,000 is our capital fund, and it is reflected in the closing balance sheet. So here capital fund, that is opening balance of rupees 6,26,000 is reflected over here. Now we will start with the solution. First of all, we will start with the receipt side. First amount is of cash in hand, that is already reflected in the opening balance sheet. So again, we will not consider this. Then subscription is of rupees 2,50,000. So on the income side, we will see the subscription of rupees 2 lakh. Subscription of rupees 2,50,000 in the inner column. Subscription rupees 2,50,000. After that, there is you have to leave at least three line for an adjustment of subscription. Then sale of cricket bat, that is of rupees 2,500. So sale of cricket bat of rupees 2,500. And then we have another income of hire of ground, that is 28,000. So hire of ground of rupees 28,000. Okay. After that, there is another amount of donation, that is rupees 6 lakhs. So they I have make it a bold because of there is an adjustment of rupees. There is an adjustment on donation. The adjustment is adjustment number second. Donation and surplus on account of the tournament are to be kept in reserve for permanent pavilion. So these 6 lakhs will be kept aside for the permanent pavilion. That means the amount should be reflected in the balance sheet. So in the balance sheet, there you have to write down reserve for pavilion, subscription for tournament, from tournament we will consider. But now we are writing over here donations, that is donations for reserve for pavilion. The amount is 6 lakh. After that, the next item is life membership fee is of rupees 20,000. The adjustment of life membership is number 5. Life membership fees to be capitalized. That means we have to add the life membership fee in a capital fund. On the liability side, we have capital fund opening balance 6 lakh 26,000. Surplus we have to find out. Life membership fee is of rupees 20,000. So I am writing here a life membership of rupees 20,000, which will be added in the capital fund. After that, subscription tournament fee is of rupees 60,000. We received a subscription tournament fee 60,000. Against we have paid 40,000 for expenses. That means on the liability side, we have to mention subscription received for tournament 60,000, against which expenses of rupees 40,000. That means we have an excess of subscription for tournament of rupees 20,000. So here the expenses of subscription for tournament 60,000, expense of rupees 40,000, and balance is of rupees 20,000, which has to be kept aside for reserve for permanent pavilion, which is given in adjustment number second. So this is the reserve for permanent pavilion of rupees 20,000, and donation which we have received of rupees 6 lakh. So 6 lakhs plus 20 amount of rupees 6 lakh 20,000 will be kept aside for reserve for permanent pavilion. Now turn towards the next item, that is members admission fees. It is our income, so we will write over here on the income side members admission fees of rupees 15,000. So it will be our income, members admissions fee 15,000. After that, we will consider our payment side. On the payment side, the first item is buy balance brought down is of rupees 16,000. So it is clearly mentioned that it is overdraft. So we have already mentioned the 16,000 in the opening balance sheet liability side, bank overdraft of rupees 16,000. After that, we have an expenses of upkeep of field, that is 1,50,000. This is our current year expenses. So on the expenses side, we are going to mention upkeep of field, that is 1,15,000. After that, we have an tournament expenses which we already consider on the liability side. We deducted it from the subscription for tournament. Out of 60 minus 40, balance is kept aside for reserve for permanent pavilion. After that, we have rates and insurance of rupees 11,000. So on the expenses side, the reserve for sorry, rates and insurance of rupees 10,000. So rates and insurance of rupees 10,000. After that, we have an expenses of rupees telephone, that is 3,500. So expenses of telephone rupees 3,500. Then postage and courier of rupees 4,000. Again, we will mention it on the expenditure side, expenses of rupees 4,000. Then we have an print expenses for printing and stationery as of rupees 26,000. Actually, there is an opening balance of printing and stationery of rupees 11,000. Current year, we purchased stationery for rupees 26,000. That means this has to be recorded on the liability asset side of the balance sheet. So, printing and stationery opening balance is of rupees 11,000, and we purchase new stationery for a current year of rupees 26,000. That means we have a total stock of rupees 37,000 for the stationery. After that, we have an expenses, that is miscellaneous expenses of rupees 4,400. We will see the printing and stationery later on what will be the adjustment thereon. So miscellaneous expenses amount is of rupees 4,400. Then we have a secretary honorarium, that is 30,000. So we here the secretary honorarium 30,000. Then grass seeds, that is of rupees 2,600. So here I am going to mention grass seeds 2,600. Okay. And now we have an investment of rupees 6 lakh. That means it should be reflected on the asset side of the balance sheet. So investment of rupees 6 lakh. After that, we purchase sports material for our sports club, that is of rupees 68,000. We have opening sports material of rupees 85,000, which is mentioned in the opening balance sheet, that is opening sports material of rupees 85,000. So here we are going to mention sports material opening balance of rupees 85,000, and we purchase of rupees 68,000. That means we have a sports material of 1,53,000. With this, we also have some another assets like playground, which is mentioned on the opening balance sheet, that is of amount rupees playground 5 lakh. So here playground amount is of rupees 5 lakh, and there is no depreciation as per the example. Uh, After that, let us see this next item, that is balance carried down. That means a closing balance of cash. So on the asset side, closing balance of cash is of rupees 74,000. That is current year cash balance. Now we don't have any kind of payments on the payment side, as well as we consider all the receipts. Now we have to turn towards our adjustment, that is additional information. The first adjustment is of assets, that is mentioned given on the first day of the 2018. That is playground 5 lakh, which is reflected in the balance sheet, opening balance sheet, cash, printing and stationery, sports material and subscription receivable, that is 28,000. Everything is mentioned in the opening balance sheet, but we have to consider this 28,000 for current year, which is not a current year income, and we will receive a subscription of rupees 2 lakh 5,000. Okay. Donations adjustment we have already done. Subscription due for current year is of rupees 42,000. In our income side, we have subscription of rupees 2,50,000. Out of this, still we have to receive rupees. Still we have to receivable of rupees 42,000. That means we have to receive 2,92,000, but we received just only rupees 2,50,000. That means 42,000 is our subscription receivable or outstanding. That means still we have to receive the amount, that is 42,000. It simply means that it is our asset, so we will mention it this subscription receivable on the asset side of our balance sheet. Now our next adjustment is of regarding subscription of rupees 28,000. So the subscription of rupees 28,000 which was receivable in the last year of rupees 28,000, in a current year we received subscription of rupees 2 lakh. That means the amount of 28,000 is for the last year, which has to be deducted from current year, because this is the subscription for current year and this is not for last year. So we have to deduct the 28,000, and the second effect is mentioned already in the opening balance sheet. After that, we have to write off 50% of sports material and 30% of printing and stationery. On the asset side, we have a stationery of rupees 11,000, that is opening balance. In a current year, we purchase of rupees 26,000, and total stationery will be for rupees 37,000. Out of this 37,000, we have to write off 30%. So 30% of 37,000 is of rupees 11,100. That means still we have a stationery of rupees 25,900. Same way, the 11,100 is write-off. That means this is our current year expenses. So we will mention our printing and stationery, that is 11,100 on the debit side of income and expenditure account, that is our current year expenses. After that, we have to write off 50% of sports material. On the asset side, we have a sports material of opening balance of sports material, that is of rupees 85,000, and in a current year we purchased a sports material of rupees 68,000. That means we have total sports material of rupees 1,53,000. Now we have to write off, that is depreciate this sports material by 50%. So 50% of rupees 1,53,000, that is 73,500, and balance 76,500 is our asset. This 76,500 is our depreciation, so we will mention depreciation on sports material, that is 76,500 on the debit side of income and expenditure account, or we can say on expenditure side. After this, we have an adjustment of life membership fees to be capitalized. We received the life membership fees of rupees 20,000, which we have already capitalized on the asset side, that is life membership fees of rupees 20,000. Now turns toward the closing of our accounts, that is income and expenditure account. On the asset side, on the income side, we have an income of rupees 3,09,000. You can see here 3,09,500. On the contrary, we have an expenses of rupees 2,57,100. This is the total of expenses, total from upkeep of field to the depreciation. We have an expenses of rupees 2,57,100. It simply means that we have an extra income of rupees 3,09,500. Sorry, we have an income of rupees 3,09,500, and we have expenses against it is 2,57,100. It simply means that we have an excess of 52,400 as excess of income over expenditure. So this is our surplus, and we are going to add this surplus in the asset side, in a liability side, that is capital fund opening balance of rupees 6,26,000. We are going to add surplus of rupees 52,500, and we already added the life membership fee of rupees 20,000. The total of these three comes to 6,98,000, which is our total on the liability side. So now we are going to tally the balance sheets. So here you can see 6,98,000 plus 6,20,000. Total comes to 13,18,400. And on the against of liability, we have an assets of rupees 25,000, 6 lakh, then 76,500, 74,000, 42,000, and 5 lakh. That means the total of these all assets is 13,18,400. In this way, the balance sheet is tallied, and you can study the final account of charitable trust. So here I would like to say thank you very much. In the next lecture, we will see another example of final account of charitable trust. Thank you very much.